Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the first ever failure night. I got knocked down, but I got up again as part of the inaugural Founders Week YQG. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Lyndon Crane. I'm a University of Windsor student, and I also host a podcast show called Coffee with Craner. I'll be responsible for moderating tonight's session, and I couldn't be more excited to welcome 6 regional founders and entrepreneurs tonight as they get real about their mistakes, their failures, and their successes. As you can see, we are live at the beautiful River Bookshop located in downtown Amherstburg. So let's get started. First, what is failure night? Unlike the F word, we don't believe that failure is a bad or dirty word. In fact, we think it should be celebrated, and that is why we've invited a group of founders and entrepreneurs to share their stories of failure with us tonight. We hope tonight's session gives the WindsorEssex startup community a chance to learn from each other, reduce the stigma around failure. Now, let's cut to some housekeeping items. To be considerate of your Friday night, we're going to keep things short and to the point. We'll be inviting up our speakers to the hot seat right next to me, and we'll be asking them 5 questions. The first, tell us about yourself in under 1 minute. What is your moment of failure? What did you do wrong? What did you learn? And what would you do differently? Tonight's session will be recorded, and a video file and relevant links will be available on WEtech's YouTube channel. And also, the Founders Week YQG follow-up email will be sent out with a link. You can even live stream live right on Facebook on the WEtech Alliance Facebook page. We also ask those who are tuning in to help us make sure everyone knows about Founders Week YQG and where it's at. Be sure to share your Founders Week YQG experience on Twitter using the hashtag Founders Week YQG. You can also share it on any social media platform. We've even created a special GIF for tonight's event that can be found on Jiffy or by searching WEtech Alliance on Instagram. Okay, so let's get this failure party started. Grab a beer or mocktail, and in our case, a Windsor Soda Pop Bros. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. It is now my pleasure to invite Frye, Manager of Program and Events at WEtech Alliance, to the hot seat to share a recap of the week so far. Frye?
Okay, I think everyone should be able to hear me now. Thank you for having me, Lyndon. And hello, everyone. Before we begin today, I just would like to make a few remarks and thank a few people. So while this event is virtual, we would like to respectfully acknowledge that the land on which we gather today is the traditional territory of the Three Fires Confederacy, comprised of the Ojibwe, the Odawa, and the Potawatomi peoples. We are grateful to live, learn, and work here. Before I give you a recap, Lyndon, there are a few people I would like to thank. First of all, no event is successful without the support of sponsors. So thank you to the Province of Ontario, St. Clair College, the Job Shop, Libro Credit Union, Workforce WindsorEssex, Baker Tilly Windsor LLP, Alpha Core Group, Venturit, the EPICentre, the St. Clair College Genesis Center, the St. Clair College Alumni Association, the Small Business and Entrepreneurship Center, and WEtech Alliance. Thank you for putting #Founders First. Thank you to all the speakers, moderators, and founders engaged in the delivery of this week. Without your knowledge and expertise, this week would not have been possible. Additionally, I would like to thank the planning committee. Lan Barkat from the EPICentre, Sue Taylor from St. Clair Genesis Center, Aparna Krishnamurthy from the Small Business and Entrepreneurship Center, and Tashlin Tusky from Workforce WindsorEssex. And finally, thank you to the WEtech Alliance team, Yvonne Pilon, John-Marc Vachon, Adam Castle, Adam Frye, Michelle Tenno-Watcher, and Janelle Abella. Thank you for all your support this week. This event is the epitome of the saying, teamwork makes the dream work. So thank you to the ecosystem, the community, and this event has become Windsor's largest entrepreneurship gathering. So thank you to everyone that I have mentioned, and thank you over and over again. Now to give you a little recap, it will be hard in just the 5 minutes allotted time that I have. So I have chosen my top 3 aha moments of the week. My first aha moment happened during Soraya Fidel's fireside chat. The story about her sharing her failure and how she sat in the car and cried and then got back up again. And that left a permanent reminder in my brain that to always do that and that failing is okay. My second aha moment was during town hall. I realized the importance of listening to entrepreneurs' voices and making impactful decisions, and how such a small event, a small decision can impact an entire community, an entire ecosystem. And then finally, my last aha moment was 5 minutes before we went live today, and I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget it. The planning journey of this event was a personal learning experience for me. And I truly hope that each and every one of you took something of value, or at least from one of the sessions. So when we started planning for this event, we thought 250 tickets would be the ideal scenario. However, we surpassed that goal before the event even began. So thank you to the WindsorEssex community for pulling together and making this event a success. And while this is the second to last session during Founders Week, our journey together does not end here. Next week, we are launching the Founders Week YQG toolkit with all the links, resources, and playback recordings of the session so that you can rewatch, share, and refresh your knowledge. And finally, what is next for our ecosystem? Founders Week YQG was just the first step in bringing our community together. As an entrepreneur myself, I implore you all to reach out to anyone in the ecosystem to take the first step. Even all you have is a big, crazy idea. And that's how the best businesses are built. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Shreya, and congrats to you and your team. It's definitely been a busy week from what I'm hearing. So congratulations to all the success, and excited to kick off the second last event today.
Thank you so much, Lyndon.
Thank you. All right, so I would now like to introduce our first guest, joining in the hot seat, Adam Frye, Director of Operations and Partnerships at WEtech Alliance, and also former startup team member at Textbooks for Change, to share tonight's first failure story.
Lyndon,
Adam,
thanks so much for being here.
my pleasure. Nice to be sitting next to you and seeing you in the hot seat.
I finally get to do a coffee with Crainer. Even if it's not coffee with Crainer, I finally get to do it. I've been following for a long time, man. Great job.
Well, in this case, it's coffee, or it's Crainer with
Yeah,
soda pop
exactly. We'll
roast,
take
right?
soda.
So, Adam, tell me about yourself in under a minute. It's a quick minute, but tell me about yourself.
Fair enough. Like you said, I'm the Director of Operations and Partnerships here at WEtech Alliance, although I have done pretty much every job, I think, in the organization at this point, other than perhaps the marketing role that John Mark does so well. Before that, though, I was lucky enough to be a part of an incredible group of human beings trying to tackle a really, really big challenge with the Textbooks for Change crew. And, you know, over my journey there, we were able to grow that team from 3 to a peak of 27. We were able to bring in a ton of revenue, and we were able to send 197,000 textbooks to East African universities that needed them really, really quite quickly. So we really did a great job there. It was a big part of my life. And then in 2017, my wife and I decided we would make the trek back home from Toronto and set up shop here in Essex and Innisford.
Well, we're glad to have you back in the
absolutely.
community, and congratulations on your success with Textbooks for Change and now at WEtech Alliance. So what would you say would be your moment of failure?
Yeah, this is a good one. So I kind of want this to be like a little bit thematic. And so I think the theme of this story is you've got to live your impact, whether you're a B2B startup, whether you're a B2C startup, whether you're a social enterprise, not-for-profit, it doesn't matter. The key here is you've got to get out and live your impact. And so, you know, when we started Textbooks for Change, or when Chris and Tom started, I was employee 1 there. We were just kind of, you know, 3 guys just trying to take on the world. And what our goal to do was with Textbooks for Change, the model was really simple. We set up drop boxes all around university campuses around Ontario, eventually across Canada, and a little bit into the US. And students were able to then donate the textbooks they no longer needed into those drop boxes. And one of 3 things would happen. The first thing is 25% of them or so were effectively recycled, because, you know, we would get journals or, you know, cookbooks, or you would not believe the stuff that would go in a Dropbox at a university campus when people are moving. It's unbelievable. And then 50% of those textbooks, like I said, we would ship to East African universities who needed them. And 25%, the other 25%, we actually sold online through Amazon, and we matched the lowest possible price so that it made it easier for students here to get cost-effective textbooks. So we try to have social impact all around the model. But when you ship anything to East Africa or anything around the globe, there's a lot that goes into that, right? When you need to fill up a full shipping container full of textbooks, that's 25,000 textbooks that you need to send over. It costs a lot of money. It's really intricate to get there and all of that stuff. So it took us about 8 months or so to actually get enough books to do this. We were so excited. We got 25,000 textbooks. We found somebody to actually sponsor the shipment so that we could do it. And we found a small university outside of Nairobi that was willing to accept the textbooks. So we shipped everything over there. It was really great. We had the media there. It was wonderful. All the books were valued at about $550,000 US. Everything was wonderful. Had a great chat with the university provost. About a year later, we had saved up enough money and we had raised a little bit of capital. So we were able to send some of our team over there to actually live that impact a little bit. And when we got there to this small little university just outside of Nairobi, we very quickly realized that the library was about the size of this room. It was able to hold a max capacity of 7,000 textbooks, and we had dumped 25,000 textbooks on this poor librarian. And so when we got there, most of the textbooks were still in the boxes that we had shipped them in. They were still sitting there waiting to be used. And so when you start to think about this as sort of a theory, you want to make sure you get out there as soon as possible and live this pain. So if you're a software company, right, make sure you use the software and live the pain to do that, right? If you're a not-for-profit, get out from behind your desk, go walk a mile in the shoes of the people that you're helping. Those types of things are invaluable. And if you don't do them, you're going to have no chance of actually making it work. And that was one of the biggest things we learned from that experience.
Is there anything, I mean, logistics nightmare.
Nightmare. Yeah,
what would you have done differently in that experience?
Yeah, you know, we talked a lot about that as a team, as a leadership team, right? Is, you know, what would we have done differently? And honestly, Karina, I don't think we'd have done anything differently. Like looking back, I think part of the beauty of being a founder and building something with people you really care about and being a mission-driven company means you're going to make mistakes, and you're probably going to make some pretty big ones along the way. So I would say for us, one of the biggest things that perhaps I would have done differently is I would have shipped them sooner, right? Like I would have got this whole thing out of the way sooner so that we could have figured it out and done it. And one of the best things we did afterwards, what it led us to do, was we hired this guy named Andrew Lobus, and he had this great job where he would spend 6 months in East Africa working with universities, making sure our shipments got across, getting all those learnings, and then he would come back and work with us for 6 months. So that was sort of one of the bigger learnings we had, was like, how can we actually make this thing work effectively? But I don't think we would change anything. I really wouldn't.
Well, it's definitely an experience. And
Yeah.
like you said, I think the biggest takeaway I've learned is that to walk in those shoes, and you went into that retail store
Mm-hmm.
at the university and saw there's, you know, a couple
Yeah,
thousand extra
couple thousand extra textbooks that we were really excited to get over there, just kind of hanging around. So yeah, it was really, really great in terms of the learning experience.
That's amazing. Well, I think that was 5 minutes. That was
Perfect.
Quick, but I think I learned a lot, and I'm glad to have you here sitting next to me today.
Awesome. Thanks, Karina. It was
Awesome.
nice to meet you.
Thank you, Adam. All right. So another speaker is coming up. Karina Biakey is CEO and co-founder at Artelisa Urban Farms, an urban vertical farm located 30-45 minutes away in Kingsville, Ontario. Karina, thanks for being here.
Hi, Lyndon. How are you?
Good, good. We spoke before, and I told you I'd ask tough questions. So here I am to ask tough questions.
Yeah, he has this, very serious question. But
So,
let's do it.
We have a tight timeline. Tell
I
me
know.
in a minute, actually, about yourself. Tell me about yourself and about your business.
I'm Karina. That's how my daughter answers when we ask who she is. She says, I'm Marcella, so I'm Karina. I think that should be enough, but I'm a proud Canadian immigrant. I've been here just over 5 years, and I'm a recent startup CEO and co-founder, and I'm a mom, as I mentioned. Yes.
Now tell me a little bit about, just because we have some time, about your business in Kingsville.
Yeah, and I think I can start talking about my business and segueing into the failure, because I decided to share with you guys tonight a recent failure, something that I'm going through right now. Instead of talking about something in the past that I learned, I overcame and succeed. No, I'm going through this right now, and it's related to Hortaliza. So I think we can answer those questions together. At Hortaliza, the business model we are trying to create and the concept we designed it was to have this vertical farms urban, pay attention to this part, urban vertical farm store experience to our customers. And in that unique value proposition that we created, we had the urban factor, right? Urban variable. But we try to bring from the schooling of startups, try to be a lean startup and trying to create an MVP and create a prototype to do it in a simple way, to test the concept, to put in the market and see how the market would, respond. So Hortaliza is a vertical farm store, as I mentioned. The problem, though, is that variable of being urban, we kind of missed the point there because we decided to have this prototype in Kingsville, which is an amazing town in the county of Essex County, right? WindsorEssex, but it's not an urban environment. So even though we're being able to test our production, operation, marketing, everything that we wanted to test in this concept in our MVP, the urban part that was quite important, we're not being able to test out. And it is maybe turning into a failure. So that's why I wanted to share something that we're going through right now.
Well, I appreciate the honesty, and that's something relevant you're going through. And with entrepreneurship, it's not an easy road to be on. What would you do differently now that you're in Kingsville now? It might be. Is it too late to make another move?
I think I don't know exactly what I've done different. I have some ideas, but we can know, because we can go back in the past. But in terms of what I'm learning, because it's a lesson learned and being learned. Of course, there's the business aspect of learning, because it's expected from us as entrepreneurs to, actually when we make mistakes, to learn from it. And if necessarily pivot, iterate many times to find that problem solution fit, problem market fit. I think that's expected. And I expected that. I think that what is interesting for me, and that's the high point of this potentially failure or not, is first of all, what I'm learning about myself, how I'm learning about embracing failure, the person who I want to become, how I want to deal with failures. Because hopefully I'm going to be failing many times because I want to become a successful entrepreneur. So I think this is setting myself up of how I'm going to respond, how I'm going to lead through a failure. The other thing is, as an entrepreneur, I see a lot of entrepreneurs, and I was 1 year ago, just 1 year ago, in the sea of people that get paralyzed because of the fear of failure. They don't even take that first step. They don't even start. And that I was that person. So I'm really proud to be on the other side now. So I'm past level 0, I'm level 1, right? Now I'm getting ready for level 2 and go to the senior league game. And finally, I think I'm learning, and it's a mental game, right? It's how we detach a business failure, an idea failure, from a failure as an entrepreneur, right? Because we can have business failure, but not being a failure as an entrepreneur. And even if we suck, I don't know if I can say that here, but if we suck as an entrepreneur, we failed 20 business, we're not set up for that. How to detach that from not being a failure as a person? Those are two different things, and not bringing that sense of worth to ourselves.
Mm-hmm. No, very powerful. And a final question, if we have a second. What are you doing to combat that failure you're going through right now to get over it?
I feel better now than I felt a year ago when I was paralyzed from the fear of failure, right? There was a risk to what I was doing. I was taking a calculated risk. I think I underestimated it, actually. I tried to be too lean, and I think I underestimated the amount of resources it would take to compensate that slower adoption rate, being in a small town, to test out this market. So, yeah, I think what I'm doing, we were talking about break the failure, right? And I was thinking I'm trying to embrace failure. I'm more comfortable, way more comfortable with failure now. Like I would start many business again and again because I fell in love with being an entrepreneur, and I couldn't feel that a year ago, and now I feel that.
That's definitely great to hear, and I'm wishing you all much success in Kingsville as this concept vertical urban farming. And be sure to check out her location. Karina, thank you for joining me in the hot seat.
We did it.
Yes,
good job
thank
in
you.
it.
You as well. All right. So guest number 3, we have Claudia Thomas, CEO and founder at Traco Web International Group. It's an IT services company located right here in Windsor, Ontario. Claudius, thanks for being here.
Good evening. Thank you. Yes, I'm really proud to be here. Thank you for inviting me, WEtech.
Yes, and thank you. We're matching.
Yes, absolutely.
Was that on purpose?
There's a trick to it.
So let's start. WEtech Green, yes. So Claudius, let's start it off. Tell me about yourself in under a minute.
Under a minute. My name is Claudius Thomas. And as you kindly correctly introduced me, CEO and founder of Traco Web International Group. And I have been in my industry forever. It's the only thing I've ever done. Always at the leading edge, doing IT, information systems, in cloud computing. And however, last year saw a huge change with the impact of Cobid, where the direction I was trying to take, everything came to a pause, and yet an opportunity came with Cobid, where I actually got an opportunity to develop a new piece of software to actually help with the Cobid mandate. And with that, I actually created a product called Panacea. And that is now a product that I'm offering and is being used by home builders, going into construction sites. And it's beginning to actually work quite well for me.
Now, with that new product launch, is there anything that's not going so well or a failure that's happening to you right now as it's a new product?
On the failure side, I actually thought about a few things coming into this and decided I actually want to go way back to the beginning of my first venture into my attempt to be an entrepreneur. My very first attempt as an entrepreneur, the first company I set up back in the UK. I tell people that I actually it was a successful company for 7 years. I said, 7 years, then you could not have failed, because a business doesn't fail after 7 years. I said, yes. I wrapped it up. I closed it. The accountants, bank all said to me, don't close it. And I said, going concern. I said, no, I'm closing it. What happened was within the space of 6 months, 60% of my business was lost. The first one, the largest client, was a company that sold airplanes, and they got bought. And the British Aerospace bought them and provided the services I was providing. And shortly after that, an international law firm decided to expand and open their own office in the UK. So they provided their own, they employed full-time people to do the work. And then the third one, which closed the deal for me, was a client that I had, international paper company. That was, again, I was providing the IT services to them. We had a deal for me to actually upgrade them with some computers, purchase 20 computers, deliver to them, go to do the work. Excuse my hand shaking, it's more medical stuff, not eaten yet. Turned up to do the work, and they denied me access. I thought, hey, what's going on here? They just shut the door on me, they don't know me. So with all of that, I decided to actually, it became emotional for me, and I closed the company. So my bank manager said, well, what advice can I pass on to him so he can share with others? I said, everybody must work with a contract. I did not issue a contract. So they were able to do that. So that's my big lesson learned.
It definitely is a tough lesson, right? And having to close a company is not easy. Is there any way you can prepare for those events to happen when companies are being bought out?
No work do I do today, that everything I do today, an NDA is signed, service agreement is signed, everything is in place, or we don't get started. Well, and my contracts are prepared by professional lawyers on Felicia Street. I paid a lot of money for it.
Well, business isn't cheap.
Absolutely.
I think this is a great story, and I think it's awesome that you were in the UK. You started a fresh new business in the Windsor region, and that you didn't give up. So I think that's an excellent example of failure, but also not letting the failure take over you. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. So guest number 4 is we have Maria Coffin, President and CEO at MARTA Management and Group Incorporated, and it's the largest privately owned full-service property management company in our area.
Thank you for having me tonight. It's actually Marla, but that's okay. No trouble.
The I's and the L's, I guess I get mixed up.
That's okay with me. No problem at all. Nice. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And so Marla, tell me in a minute about yourself.
Sure. So I'm the co-founder of MARTA Management Inc., as mentioned, a property management firm in the WindsorEssex region. My husband and I also own a property management company that manages condominiums called Huron Shores Property Management, as well as a recently founded company called Vision and Numbers, which is a bookkeeping firm we opened earlier this year. So we certainly are very busy entrepreneurs, but certainly love the entrepreneurial life, that's for sure.
Well, congrats on the new business, Marla. And can you talk to us about some failures that you've had?
There are many, many failures I could talk to you about tonight. There's no doubt about that. We founded our company in 2010, which is our core business, MARTA Management. We have certainly learned many of lessons throughout that time. But one specific thing that I want to talk about tonight is really going from playing checkers to chess. And that is something that we had to learn the hard way. We spent many years, the majority of the first 10 years in business, we spent working mostly 7 days a week, mostly 12 hours a day, doing all of the granular things that are required of any business startup. We were every position in our firm. So as a property management company, we'd be the ones collecting rent. We'd be calling roofers. We'd be on call in the middle of the night when we had to let the police in somewhere. You know, whatever the requirements were, from the bookkeeping to all components of our business were run and accomplished by us, as is the experience of almost any startup as it should begin. So, you know, we really feel as though one of the things we could have done differently, and in retrospect may have done differently at some point, is moving from that to a place where we could start being strategic about our business, a place where we could start playing chess, a place where we could start really trying to figure out what's our end game, where are we trying to go with this, what are our goals, what kind of life do we want to live, what kind of balance do we want to have. We have a young daughter who's 3, so what kind of time do we want to spend at home? Do we want to travel? What are our personal priorities? And those are very, very backburnered when you are a young startup trying to do what it takes to make it happen. So go ahead.
No, definitely.
Yeah.
And just from my understanding of property management is it's not an easy business to run. I would imagine some of your staff are up late at night.
Certainly.
So did you say that you're now contracting out companies in order to work on certain assignments, or is it more of you've just hired more staff to really accommodate that increase in demand?
We've really grown our staff team. We have a team of approaching 50, and certainly couldn't do it without them, but it has allowed us, even more so than ever in the last year, the opportunity to focus on the long-term goals of the company, expansion opportunities of the company, growing and acquiring other businesses, as I mentioned earlier. And those things just would not, there's no way either my husband or myself could have had the brain power to consider any of those things when we were just, as it was mentioned earlier this morning, when we were on the radio, running on the hamster wheel. There's just so much to do. And there's one thing that none of us can create or buy, and that is time. So for us, I think that if we had started playing chess just a little bit sooner, we might be a little further than we are. There's a season to everything. So I think any startup, any small business needs to start in a place where you have to do the legwork and you have to bootstrap sometimes, and you have to do what it takes. And sometimes that's long hours, and sometimes it's long days. Sometimes it's gatherings missed and vacations gone by. But I like to think that there's a season to everything. And perhaps in retrospect, we could have wrapped that season up a little sooner.
And just to touch on, you mentioned there's a new section of your company that's opened up and is starting. Is there any failures there that you're noticing so far?
I would say that we've actually had the privilege of taking a lot of what we've learned and been able to apply it to those components of the business. But please don't get me wrong. We run into daily circumstances. I'm still today on my way out of the office to come here doing a task that I self-reflected on and said, this is a pretty granular task that perhaps my time could be spent doing something a little bit more strategic for the business. So always learning and always growing. And I don't think that ever goes away as a business owner, a founder, or an entrepreneur.
So would you say delegation is key as a business owner?
Delegation is key. Understanding when taking the leap to make your next hire or sometimes first hire is absolutely pivotal. Many entrepreneurs and small business owners wait too long, many wait too long, including myself, to make their first hire. But it's often hard to pull that trigger because you're in a little bit of a power struggle between profit or funds that the company may need for other things and spending money on additional resources and people, right? So it's always a little bit of a struggle, and making the call at the right time can be tough.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Marla, with an L, not an I.
No problem. My pleasure.
Pleasure having you on. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks so much.
All right. So guest number 6 actually is coming up is Frank Aberzese, CEO and president at AlphaCore Group, also known as the king of networking. Frank, thanks for being here.
Thanks, London.
I know a bit about you, but for those that are watching, tell me about yourself.
Sure. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure seeing you again. I don't recognize about the coffee, but Frank Aberzese, married to the lovely Carmela for 28 years. We have 2 beautiful daughters. Woo! She's in the house tonight. Networking, yes, I started my second networking group this year during the virtual world. Now we're in person, and I mentor, love helping out startups and established companies. And my day job is I'm CEO and president of AlphaCore, a really cool IT company here locally for 26 years.
Awesome. So it's a major technology company in our area. Has there been any specific failures that you've noticed throughout growing this massive company?
Well, being around myself for 33 years, I've seen a couple things myself. I really thought about something that's relevant today because we've been going through a challenging 20 months. So I'm going to go back to the recession of 08, 09. When our company, we had some pretty good growth over the years. And what happened 08, 09, we ended up investing in a building. We moved from, we had a nice little spot on Wyandotte Street. We moved to Mercer. We tripled our size. We hired some people. We ended up getting a second location. We were busting at the seams at that time. And so what happened was a lot of clients were outsourcing because they were downsizing. Companies were having some challenges. There were some bankruptcies going on. And yet, we were continuously growing, and we were telling our story, and marketing was going on, and we won our first Chamber Excellence Award. So a lot of clients were coming to us saying, well, wait a minute, are you guys getting too big and too busy to take care of us? And we kept saying, no, we're not. No, we're not. So a few customers really set us aside, and we had some really hard, tough conversations with them. So we called an emergency staff meeting, and the team, the AlphaCoreans, are amazing. We had a really good, open, candid discussion. We put some ideas in place. We went through our lessons learned, and we went back out to them. And we set the path in a positive way. So we were very happy to do that at that time. Which for the startups out there, when you're in that 0 to 5, 5 to 10 years, you really have to go that extra mile. I agree with what Marla said as well. All those extra things that you have to do to make sure that you're running and staying on path.
So with that massive growth in 2008, 2009. Did you think you were growing too fast looking back at it now?
At the time, yes. Now, no. But when you're in it, it's hard to hire the right resources and react quickly enough and put everything in place. So people that are expecting, in our business, we're 24/7, we're immediate response. So when the response becomes slightly delayed, it becomes a challenge for some companies. Today, it's prevalent more than ever. And I wanted to bring it up because during this time, everyone needed help. Last March, we all pivoted, and everybody had to work 24/7, weekends. My phone was lit like a Christmas tree those first 3 months, and you just had to be there and be humble and make it about the customer and make sure we're taking care of them.
Absolutely. And I just want to touch on because you're a major technology company in our area, how did COVID affect your business?
So the first quarter of COVID, the number of service tickets was exponential. Products were put on hold. You couldn't get any products. Product is still a challenge in most of the chains, not just in IT, obviously. But our team, we pivoted as well. We all worked from home. 6 of us were left in the office. So I stayed in to kind of, and a couple of the partners, we stayed in to run the ship. And we did everything remotely. We put work from home policies together, helped our clients put that together. And then we just did critical on-site at that time. So there were a lot of major adjustments. We did start interactive webinars just to help people, non-IT, just to help business people have open conversations. We ran them twice a week just to be there for everyone to help each other out.
And was there anything that went wrong for, when you had to go all online?
Anything went wrong if the internet went down. So in the defense of the internet companies, I will say, obviously they didn't plan for this. We told everyone to be patient, but I really think they reacted quickly enough. Most people live in the neighborhoods. Just think about it. There was 1 or 2 people home in a home, and you get both parents and two. You got 4 people using 4 devices, 4 phones, 4 TVs that are streaming. The internet was not ready, so that was the most challenging part. But I think they came together fairly quickly and got their plans. But that was not anticipated by them. I think they would have a really good lesson learned story to tell.
For sure.
Mhm.
Anything you learned from that moment or throughout the pandemic with your business?
Well, we learned to be very patient and to ensure that morale was boosted both internally and externally, and to ensure that we were always there to help everyone and we felt everybody's pain. When you order a product and you say our suppliers can't tell us when it's coming in, you really have to work with everyone and figure out, is there substitution or something we can take from our stock and try to help. So everybody came together to help everybody out.
Absolutely. Well, Frank, it's a pleasure having you in the hot seat. I didn't
My
ask too
pleasure.
many tough questions as I said I would, but really great to be speaking with you and learning about your successes, but also your failures.
Great. Thanks so much, Linda.
Frank.
Pleasure seeing you.
All right, and now we have a special speaker, Richard Petty, co-owner of River Bookshop, and then also was the former president and CEO of Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, and not to mention a massive community builder in the Amherstburg community. So Richard, thanks for joining me.
And I'll hold it right. So Linda, nice to be here, and thanks for joining us in the River Bookshop. Congratulations to my good friend Yvonne for, watching her over the last, God, it's not a decade yet, but it's been a while. And to put this week together with all your events, just a stellar job. So normally when I give quite a few speeches, and normally I talk about the highlights of my corporate career. So it's not often that I've been asked to speak about my failures. I can tell you there've been quite a few. I spent 19 years in consumer products, launched many promotions that failed, launched many products that failed. Who here has heard of Brightside shampoo? Maybe Punch detergent? I can remember I worked on 5 different detergents, battling Tide, and none of them exist today. So I did that. So I'm prepared to speak about failure tonight, obviously. So when I do give speeches, I often look for things to kind of get me going. And in this case, I looked up the dictionary and what it said about failure. It's lack of success in some effort. He became discouraged because of the failure, or she had been crippled by her failure. So those quotes are a start, but there's much more to failure than that. So I have too had a personal failure was very major to me at that time. When I was going to the University of Windsor a long time ago, the University of Windsor men's Lancers, women are better today, were dominant in Canadian university basketball. I followed the Pistons. I followed the University of Michigan. I really liked basketball. The problem was I sucked at it. I couldn't make the Massey Mustangs team, definitely couldn't make the Lancers, and to think that I would ever play in the NBA was completely laughable. So I did something that I didn't realize was important at the time. I'm, just 20 years old. I wrote in a journal that I wanted to run a basketball team. Now that's a pretty crazy idea because when I did it, there's only 12 NBA teams in the whole league. But I learned afterwards that I did something really important. I learned that first of all, have a vision, whether that's for yourselves personally or for the company, independent entrepreneurial companies that you have, but also write it down. I've learned many years later that if you write it down, it actually increases your probability. So I hope you've gone through that discipline. I'm looking for my quote here. So Chicken Soup for the Soul by Canfield. He's got a little bit of a quote that really speaks to that advice. Where have I got it written down here now? So, okay. So, and basically he said, write it down. First of all, have a vision, write it down, try to look at it constantly, and every day do something that moves you towards that vision. So again, I didn't have the benefit of reading Canfield's book. I read that years later. So it told me that I was on the right step. So I love this basketball. So I wrote in this journal that I was going to run a basketball team someday, business side, not being a point guard. And so I started. I graduated. I went into packaged goods for 19 years, learning a lot of things that you think about, whether it's branding, market research, sales, finance, HR, running a vegetable plant doesn't count, but all of that other stuff really applied to running a basketball team. And I'd like to say I was getting my ticket punch. It's an expression I've used constantly. And so I'm doing that for 19 years. I was absolutely still dedicated to running a team. I can remember in the last year I was running Pillsbury. We had a tremendous year, and I was sitting around with my executive team. We're all talking about what we're going to do next. And I said, I'm bringing the MBA to Canada. That was in something like 1989. And so the Skydome job came up. Well, I think, okay, geez, you're going to run a basketball team or any sports team, you need to know how to run a venue. And so Skydome was a perfect example. You put on concerts, you sell tickets, you sell hot dogs. You do all those things to get yourself ready. Then one day, so I'm running that and learning a great deal. Incredible experience because I knew nothing about the industry. The interesting thing is, I got in to see a headhunter and he looked at me and said, so why should I hire you? You know nothing about that. Well, I didn't try to pretend that I did because that would have been not true. I said, you know what? I think the sports leagues, this is now 1989. I think the sports leagues, the NBAs, the NFLs are moving in the direction of being more like Procter & Gamble or Colgate, which I'd worked for. So anyhow, they bought that story. And it was hellish in the first year. You're there all the time. Thankfully, the Blue Jays were winning World Series. And I learned an incredible amount of stuff. And then one day I got a cold call from a fellow named Larry Tannenbaum. Some of you may recognize that name today. He's a 25% owner of Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment. He's chairman of the NBA. And he said to me, do you know anyone who'd like to help me run a basketball team, bring a basketball team to Toronto? And I said, yeah, me. And so I took a 6-month leave of absence. I worked for Larry for those 6 months. I visited 21 of the 28 franchises that time, learning about best practices. I was networking like crazy. We spent $1 million getting ready for it. We wrote a full business plan. We did a couple $100,000 in market research. We picked out a logo. We picked out a brand. And I don't think many have ever seen this. Do you want to hold this for 1 second? We even developed all the merchandise. Thunder. So we were that far along. Thank you. We were that far along. We pulled out all the stops. It was a huge exercise. And we went in to present. We had Labatt's with us. We had the Blue Jays with us. We had CIBC with us. We're definitely the favored team to do it. We misread some things, how you deal with an NBA or how you deal with any commissioners. It's not a democracy at all. There might be 30 directors and owners, but whether it's in those days, the late David Stern or Gary Bettman, you've really got to listen to them. And we thought we were smarter than that. And we lost fair and square. I was so convinced we were going to win on a Thursday night, they're going to announce it. Well, that was pretty naive to think they're going to announce it without arranging all of the PR and getting tickets on sale. So like, duh. And I'm going to Larry's house, and I thought I'll go back and pick up a couple bottles of champagne to celebrate. Literally, I'm getting out of a dark LCBO parking lot. I'm opening the door. The radio's still on because the door hasn't closed, and it says the other team won. I had at that time spent 26 years getting my ticket punched, doing everything that I thought I could do possibly to get this job. And it was gone, just like that. And so, yeah, I was depressed. And I went back to work at Skydome because they gave me the leave of absence. They were good enough to do that. And I thought, I said, geez, I can't do one more Disney on Ice show. I'm getting kind of bored with that. I love the concerts, rock and roll. I got my earring back. I had a ponytail. It's a pretty cool time. And I networked and became president of TSN, Discovery Channel, and Réseau de Sports in Quebec. And so I started learning stuff again. I'm back getting my ticket punched. I'm not worried about, the 4 stages of acceptance, denial, anger, rationalization. I went right back into it. I used the sports analogy, get back into the gym. And that's what I did. I got back into the gym and I learned so much. I learned how to do the sports news show at 11 o'clock. I programming on the Discovery Channel. I launched tsn.ca, the first website. There was all kinds of things that I was working on and how to do rights deals. In fact, I did one with the NBA, which was kind of ironic. So what happened, the fellows that won the team had a big fight, and they the winner needed a president. And I like to say that in 1996, I was the most qualified person in Canada, other than Paul Beeston, who had a pretty busy job running the Blue Jays, to run this team. So after 29 years, I had my dream job. And so then it was kind of dream job gets better. I run the Leafs and I run the Raptors, and I said they threw in the Leafs for Frye. And so I had the Maple Leafs, and then we were pretty bold and we launched Toronto FC, which everyone thought would be a failure. Everyone thought, because it had been tried. And I can tell you my management team, which was really a wonderful group of 12 men and women, and we were quite inclusive, quite engaged. And I said, we're going to bring football to Toronto and Canada. And that was the one day that my management team said, oh no, let's not do this. And it was the only time I can ever remember completely overruling them. We bought the team for $10 million. Today it's worth $650 million. And to buy a franchise, you can't buy them for $10 million anymore. So that was really great. So, that was my lesson. Get back into the gym. Don't give up. Don't be despondent. And, it doesn't hurt to have dream big.
Really, really awesome, Richard. Thank you. So you've heard it from Richard. Get back into the gym. We talked a lot about mission, vision, and values. We learned about what was the team's name again? Thunder.
You know what? I think the Raptors better, actually. I do. It's kind of an Indigenous reference. We actually vetted it with Indigenous people because I didn't, many years later, people are still making mistakes with that. So I thought it was pretty good. We did the logo. We did $200,000 of research, but I really like the Raptor, and it lends itself to. It's an animated character in the gym. It's one of the best sports mascots. So hats off to the other group. They picked a better logo.
Absolutely, Richard. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. really fantastic end to tonight's second last event for Founders Week YQG. And I just want to say a big thank you to all of tonight's speakers for sharing their stories of failure and lessons learned with us tonight. So on behalf of Founder Week YQG, we really can't wait to celebrate and continue to celebrate the failures and successes of being an entrepreneur and business owner. So this does conclude our first ever failure night. For those of you joining us from home or the office, thank you for tuning in. We hope tonight's event provided you with learning opportunities and a message that admitting failure is not taboo. Your feedback is important to us. Please take a moment right now to complete a quick survey about tonight's session. Just click the link in the chat box. I believe it's on Zoom. And a completed survey will enter you for a chance to win a tourism WindsorEssex Peely Island $50 Welcome to Windsor gift card. Now, Founders Week YQG is still not over. Coming up tomorrow on Saturday, join us for the RBC Epic Business Model Canvas competition for post-secondary students from across Canada will be showcasing their business model validation expertise and compete for a chance to win over $20,000 in cash and in-kind prizes. So everyone joining us tonight on Facebook, live, Zoom, you name it, thanks for joining. Have a great night, and we look forward to seeing you next year at Founder Week YQG. Perfect.